So, a video blog. I was flying back to the University of Arizona from Chicago. I was in the middle seat. I was 200 pounds, in great shape. And next to me on one side was a big, heavy man, and on the other side was a big, heavy woman. Now, the flight was 4 hours long, and both of them reeked of sausage, I think it was, but they had really strong food odors. Not nasty food odors, but they smelled of like sausage, say. So it wasn't like this, but it was really strong. It's like kimchi. My Korean friends, they check their breath and their clothing to see if they smell of kimchi. That's why Febreze is nice. Meaning you don't want to scent it, you just want to take the odor out of it. Under it you have, perfume or cologne. Perfume for women, cologne for males. The pocketful posies, as I was looking up, they used to keep it from stench in France. That was the precursor to cologne and perfume. They used to use these botanicals, little bouquets. They carried the flowers in that before they came up with the botanicals. Perfume and cologne are really botanicals in a way. And then somebody figured out you can make them into different liquor products and so on. But you can use botanicals in beer. But they give it different flavors or accents. But being said, they both were over in my seat. Both of them were in my seat. They were pressed up against me. I was literally wedged in. I couldn't even put my arms down. How I slept? I had to cross my arms. So I crossed my arms across my body. Why? To pull my shoulders in. So I crossed my arms, and with my hands I grabbed each shoulder, and then to take a little pressure off, once we got up in the air, I put the seat back a little bit. And I fell asleep for 4 hours. I went into hibernation. Because I'm like, I can't do this. I can't watch TV. I can't do nothing. I can't get food service. We have food service. I can't get any of it. They literally were pressed up. I couldn't move my arms. So I decided I'll just skip everything. They can have the meal service and so on. I slept through the beverage service. I slept 4 hours. Next thing I heard was bing, bing. We are preparing for landing. Please put your seat up and tray table up and so on. Well, I didn't have the tray table down. So I put my seat up because I had to. And then I kept my arms all tucked in. They had a nice flight. And I did actually too. Some people, no, I did. I slept very soundly. I got good 4 hours. I woke up very refreshed. Instead of being really frustrated, and then I have to press the bell and the plane's packed, and I'm going to plane to the flight attendant, I can't, these two fat people, and I'm wedged in here. And so I just bit the bullet. I found the way around it, and I just let it all go and just laid back and just accepted the situation. I don't want to be complaining about, this woman and man, they're too fat. And they were. There's already a court ruling big heavyset guy. He was like 400 plus pounds. You can pull up the precedent. He sued the airlines. Why? Because they charged him for 2 seats. He literally couldn't put down the thing separating him from the other seat. They couldn't put somebody in a seat next to him because he took all of his seat and most of the second seat. And they charged him. He flew the flight, but he had to pay for 2 seats. When he came to the plane, truly, they told him, you can't board the plane. You have to buy a second seat. They didn't give it to him. And he paid the seat, then he sued the airline. And the court said, no, the airline have every right. They have limitations. You could have took the train, you could have took a bus, you could have went some other way. You could have rented a car. You had other options. You're not ADA. Now you could say, okay, well, I don't know how he came obese. And there is really, when somebody comes obese, is there a condition that drives the obesity? So they have a thyroid problem and that, then they could qualify for ADA protection. Truly. Like, I went under lithium and I gained 150 pounds. Like, yeah, basically somewhere in there, 150 pounds. I would fall under the ADA protection. So I could sit in the handicap bathroom and everything else. And the funny thing is, I was at Costco and I was on the handicap stall, and this just happened once, and the guy, like, you know, hit the door and said, "You're not disabled, get out of there." I'm like, what do you mean? I can't fit in the other bathroom. I'm too big. So I go into the handicap stall because of my size. But just think of Shaq. He can't fit in the traditional bathroom. He has to go into the handicap bathroom. But think of a plane. Those bathrooms on planes aren't ADA compliant. Do you know that? Those bathrooms on planes are not ADA compliant. And when you're a bigger person, those bathrooms are incredibly tight. So if you're a football player, this is why they fly private planes and don't fly on standard. They have charter and everything. They need larger toilets. They need larger restrooms. So we get all these bigger athletes. They need more room. Like, I didn't work for Mass Mutual, and I truly have a huge crush on Annabelle, and my ex-boss Bill McDermott was there and everything. But when I had to go to the bathroom, and I went into the bathroom, I'm like, I can't go to the bathroom. I had to go and sit down on the stall, and I couldn't fit. So I couldn't go to the bathroom, and that's fine. I just hold it. But I also decided, if I'm not going to work in this office, if I go to this office, I can't fit. I'm not going to be miserable every day going. So I didn't tell Annabelle and Bill, but I can't work for Mass Mutual. The accommodations don't work for me. And I've had big crush on her forever. And I thought we were good because she knew a lot of people I did. And bringing David in, and David was with me, it would have been good to pair up. I was going to bring her into John Hancock. Her mother was a banker. And David could have worked through her mother and her banking connections. And we would have paired up really good. Besides my extreme physical attraction to her. We just paired up very nicely. And she always treated me well. And I always remember that, so when she called and asked me for the Penn Mutual or anything else, I really took a look. I took a hard look. Because as she treated me with dignity and respect, I treated her with absolute dignity and respect. So when she asked me, I really considered. I looked at all the stuff, did a compare and contrast, and told her this is why I can't. But I can't lie. I'm not going to lie and deceive people. And so I told her, if I could, I would in a heartbeat, and I think you're a perfect pairing. I wanted to bring her into my practice. So she is friends with Joe Perillo and other people that I knew, and it would have cemented relationships. Bringing people into a practice, sometimes you bring people into a practice because that person brings another connection to that individuals that you want to do business. And I already had talks with Perillo before about opening property casualty, and she was licensed in property casualty. And I could have stuck her in the dealership, and she could have done analysis helping people buy BMWs. Why? Because you're going to pay a lot for your auto insurance when you're buying expensive cars. So going over and customizing the policy, even if we don't change the carrier, we change the type of coverage. There are riders, things you can add on to policies, or things you can take off of policies. You can move to whole different types of... Allstate doesn't just have one type of comprehensive auto insurance. So, again, there's ways to amend them. So we amend them to more custom suit the owner. And I was going to work with Joe, and I was going to do this through David, which I didn't get to because I wanted Annabella. She would have been perfect to make this happen, and I could have positioned her in the BMW branches. She could have ran them for me. And she carries herself well. She's very cute. And she's a smart girl. She grew up in finance with her mother. She was also a realtor. But that gave her more knowledge about property casualty insurance. And I miss her. But, again, you bring people in for certain reasons. And sometimes, just like they used to do in the old days, solidifying relationships between families, well, it's the same thing. You bring somebody in because they have a strong connection. They have to have she had the other attributes. If not, then they're just a referral. And you're looking to get a referral from them, and you stay in a referral relationship. But she was something that governed developing more than just a referral relationship. And this is my McDonald's where I used to grow up and go. And this is the McDonald's where I was almost killed by a bank robbers. And they were coming down this street, Elston, towards me, and they hit the Irving Park, and they made, for them, a sharp left. And the light for me was a walk. And some reason, I just didn't walk. For some reason, I was just stuck. And lo and behold, vroom, right by right by the curb. They flew by, I don't know, you say 100 miles an hour, and the cops were right behind them. Boom. I'm thinking, wow, I would have took a step out, I would have been instantly killed. There's no way I would have survived. And they were bank robbers. Again, things I think about why I like taking down criminals as well. They've threatened my life so many times, it's unbelievable. This is where our stand was, and this is where the Chinese people who were immigrants, but they came in legally. They spoke English. And I used to come into this restaurant all the time. And this is this little island right here was where our newspaper stand is. Right here, it's a little island. And so the front door faced this building where it says liquor, faced this building, but I had a window and cars could pull up. This was a drive-up newspaper stand. So I'll go around and show you. So I'm going to do the Yui. And so I don't know where this Chinese family is, but I still, things didn't turn out the way I wanted them, but I still have great respect and love for them. That is part of things, doing positive things with Chinese. So here is the pole, and it's right here on Elston, Ridgeway, and Belmont Freeway, and you just pull up right here, and people would roll down. I'll show you the window. So here's my passenger window. Here's the pole where newsstand right here. They would just roll down the window. If they were a single, truly a lot of people, individual, and since it was on the passenger side, and they'd be like, I'd be Sun-Times or Tribune. They'd be like, give me the Tribune or give me the Sun-Times. I'm like, okay, that's $1.50 or whatever it was. And they hand over the change, and I give them their change back. And then once I did the transaction with the cash first, then I gave them the paper. So I did the transaction with the money first, finished that, then I put their paper on their passenger seat or handed it to them, but right through the window. So I did all my business, most of the business was drive up with people even in the 1970s, and this is the early 70s. I was just 6 or so. I had a paper route and I worked in a newsstand. But again, my dad died at 7. I was here working at that newsstand when my dad died. So I started at 6. I had my paper route at 6 as well. So anyways, I had 2 jobs and I went to school full time. But that being said, I sell papers to people walking up and I sell people to drive up. So it was a drive-up newsstand. And so a lot of people drove up and picked up their paper. This street, Elston, is very busy. This brings people into the center of the city. People take Elston all the way down to go to the Board of Trade, to go to the Merchandise Mart, to go to the Board of Options Exchange. They take Elston Avenue instead of the highway. And so Elston gets very busy in the morning, inbound and outbound. So it's a very, very busy thoroughfare. But the problem is opening up the parking and getting these people to stop, because most of these merchants make no business from the inflow and make no business from the outflow. So these communities stay poor. Where the hell are you going to park? Because the people that live in the neighborhood, they take up all the street parking. They can do a domestic street ban from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. You can't park. From 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., you can't park if you live here. You have to park somewhere else. During rush hour, you can't park. Only non-residents can park on the street, and only, 30 minutes, 15-minute segments. Surely you want them to turn over. So you say maximum is 15 or 30-minute segments. So these merchants, what happened? I told you what happened on Halsted. The city of Chicago, with Lopez said, okay, we'll give you a meter holiday on Halsted in Chicago by DePaul. And they have tons of small businesses right there on Halsted. And so they said, okay, we'll do a meter holiday so the businesses on Halsted could get what? Could get lots of people parking there for free, giving the merchants enhanced business opportunity on a Sunday. So it was to give them greater business opportunity. And what happened? All the residents decided they park on the street for free on Sunday. This is a 30-mile-an-hour street. This guy behind me, as you can see, that car really close to me, and it's hanging over. They can pass me. It's not illegal to pass. But this is a city street. Lots of pedestrians, lots of cars pulling in, parking, people getting out, little kids moving around, elderly people moving around. And hence, why would you do that? And this is what I mean. When you have the most here, you have the greatest responsibility to take care when you're driving. People in the city need to be held to higher standards. Unlike people drive better in the burbs, where you have wider streets, more grace, and in the burbs, they do a better job. I'm wearing my Jesus wear, the hat. But in the burbs, they do a better job of driving etiquette. Why? Because they have higher levels of education. My high school, 99% went to college. 99% went to college. And people that go to college function. These people, like this guy right here on my butt, they're pieces of garbage. They're filth. They show who they are. And they take it out on the world because they're less accomplished. Look at this piece of garbage. L. Marshall Inc. Piece of freaking garbage in front of me. And they take it out on the world because their life sucks. Because they chose to do drugs in school. They chose to do these evil things. They chose. They chose their friends. I grew up with all these kids doing drugs around me, and I refused. They were doing alcohol. I refused. I had no mother. She worked second shift. She came home during third, late in the morning, slept through the whole school day, basically. My father worked third shift. He was never around. I was orphaned from childhood. Left on my own. So were my older brothers and sisters. And these pieces of garbage, blame it, I had to pick cockroaches out of my cereal. And I worked 2 jobs. I worked at the newspaper stand. And I worked early morning. I had to get up at 2 to 3 in the morning to go to the newspaper place. And I worked at the newsstand on the weekends. Truly. So I was working in 2 places. They were integrated. I forget how many days a week I did the paper route. Sometimes 7 days a week, but not always. But how many 6-year-olds you know get their own jobs, go out, get hired, interview? I interviewed for the job at 6 years old. I went there and interviewed. And he had to see, could I read the tags? Could I push the cart? It's a big, heavy steel cart. Now, he painted them all yellow, but we had steel wheels too, not rubber. So it did make some sound as I pushed it down the street. But in the winter with the snow and that, it didn't make any. But during the summer, you know, it made a little bit of noise. It had 2 big rear wheels, 2 smaller front wheels, but it was painted bright yellow. He painted them all very bright yellow. So you could see, because I had to move it in between cars and to the side when a car would come down the street. And even when it was snowing out, most people weren't out. I was done by 7 a.m. But sometimes I had to push the cart out of the way so the car could pass into snowbanks. You remember Dick Buckus, I told you, used to push cars up hills? Well, as a little boy, I used to push heavy carts of paper, bundles of paper. Truly, I pick up bundles, move bundles, wrap paper for the paper stand, and then I ran phone books and did all kinds of lifting as a little kid. I set lifting power records. I set all the freshman records for powerlifting at Benedictine and other places. And I used to work out at Benedictine with a junior Olympic powerlifter. So don't tell me that exercise doesn't work. But show me another kid in the world that has 2 independent jobs that he gets on his own and then has to take care of people at school, take care of his younger brother, help his alcoholic mother and father. Truly, help and watch over them when they're drunk. Take your drunken father back from the bar, put him in bed, watch over your drunken mother, make sure she gets to bed. I had to tuck my mother and father in and watch over them while they were drunk. Not my older brother and sister, not my younger brother, not my 2 older brothers. And then I had to watch over my brother Richard when he got sick. And I had to defer to him. He was 2 years in the hospital. Everything was about him. And I told Jen that I grew up with attention deficit disorder. Everybody, my younger brother, my mother was the focus. He was the baby. My older siblings, they got the grandparents and everything else until they died. And then they were the focus because they acted out. I didn't act out. So they were the focus of my mother and father. And then my father died, my brother got sick. And he was the focus of my mother. So I was always ignored, always left alone, always isolated. And I took on everybody's responsibility. No one ever gave me a reward for all the stuff I did at Patrick Henry or Wilmot Junior High, or at least Mr. Cohen acknowledged. And at least in the junior high, my black social worker, the female, acknowledged my accomplishments. But again, I got ignored. Jen was supposed to solve the problem where I was the love of her life, and I had this person who was totally devoted to me, loving me with that body, loving me with those thoughts, loving me, totally devoted to me. as I wanted it, I gave it to her as well. Reciprocity, eye for an eye. You reap what you sow. I gave it back to her. And I told her many times. I gave her my whole psychological profile. That, I had the daddy complex. Because my father died and I loved my father in our relationship, I was always looking for that father figure in my life. God filled it, but he couldn't fill the physical aspects of a father. So I got into partnership with Tim Dempsey, who screwed me over. And I didn't leave, and I stuck through all his bullshit, and he screwed me over. Then I got in partnership with David, who also was filling that fatherly role, filling a component that I so deeply missed. And I didn't know until I saw the Tom Selleck movie, Magnum P.I., when he was treading water and how his father taught him survival, how to survive in the ocean. And he was treading water and he's flashing back. And this is 1988. I was watching the episode. I know exactly where I was in my apartment at Scotia Club. And I started crying and crying and crying and crying because something I repressed since I was 7 years old. And now I'm like 20. For 13 years, I repressed it. And I didn't know. So I can understand. And you think, rape? And how can they do this? What did I do when I was molested as a child? I repressed it. I totally forgot the whole incident. I repressed it because once I realized it was extremely traumatizing to me what went on. I didn't understand, but after Cookie's daughter got raped, I understood. And at that age, I repressed it and totally forgot about it. My mind protected myself. Maybe God protected me, but it closed over. And one argument with my mother, and I didn't remember it, and she was like, you were never molested or anything. And I'm like, okay. And then later on, it wasn't right away, but a year or so later, all of a sudden, holy shit. I totally forgot about that. I had no cognitive awareness of it. The synapses closed over. It took a while to burn through to open them back up again. And that's what you're doing for me. Reliving the horrors in my life. Reliving the trauma that I sealed and I repressed. That I dealt with and got rid of. And you keep on burning through it and bringing up the horrors. You trapped me in the condo. You trapped me in the poverty. I've been fighting to get out of poverty since I'm a child. Why do you think I worked 2 jobs? Because I enjoyed being impoverished for so much? No! What do you think I got into financial planning for? So I could get out of poverty. But I should have through the hospitality, but everybody kept on screwing me over. Then I thought, well, in financial services, they have higher morals and ethics. People won't do this. Clients won't do this. Well, do you know what? I think they were worse than hospitality, maybe. Unbelievably unmoral and incorrupt, the backstabbing, lying, cheating that I experienced in financial services is unprecedented. Incredibly worse than I experienced in hospitality. And it's a profession that's supposed to have the highest of morals and ethics. And I ran into all the dirty, rotten, scoundrel, cheating, lying, deceiving. And I'm back here impoverished again. Where God keeps on trying to lift me out of poverty. And this is what God has done my whole life. Every time he tries, He gives you free will, and you go against everything. All this was supposed to lift me out of poverty. I watched Shark Tank, The Profit, Bar Rescue, and everything. I should be a trillionaire! And I truly mean that. It was supposed to lift me out of poverty. But instead, I get to watch the NFL draft and them sign their contracts, and the NBA draft. Then I get to watch this person get their book and this person get their movie role and lift themselves out of poverty. Then I get to watch the Shark Tank and all the others lift themselves out of poverty. And God has been trying to get me out of poverty. He wants me filthy, filthy rich. Never to thirst again. My cup so flows over that it's incredible. But you keep on. And any wise person, I did have people call me up when I was at Platinum in 16, like, do you want to work for the pharmaceutical industry? Some guy sent me his book to review. Do you want to be a editor and a reviewer of books? And I did have these different opportunities, but I built my practice. I wanted to build on my financial service that I was supposed to be, where I was chosen by God to be. As I told Tom Kim, that's why I came back. It was where I was supposed to be. My obituary, which I wrote in one of my finance classes that was for summer school, I think second session at the University of Arizona, and the teacher had us write our obituary. And I thought it was really eye-opening. He said, how do you want to be remembered? And what was my obituary say? The world's greatest economist. I wanted on my tombstone to be remembered as the world's greatest economist, an incredible builder, solving the world's economic problems, and from there solving all the other problems with poverty and hunger and disease and everything else, making sure the means were there to solve all the problems in the world. And I wanted to be known as the greatest economist in the history of mankind. And I wanted to leave a legacy that no other person could ever surpass. No other person could ever surpass. And I've worked my ass off trying to do that. And I keep on getting taken back. You know how many degrees I would have? How many PhDs? How many black belts? How many? It would be incredible. But I was always drained out of funds and forced to quit. Do you know what my relationship would be like with Jen? Do you know how deep and blessed it would have been? How angelic it would have been? It would have been incredible. Unfreaking believable. It would have been like no other relationship on earth between a man and woman. And that was my goal. To be unprecedented. Nothing stands above. But you are selfish, backstabbing, cheating, lying, scheming freaking pigs. And you demoralize me as you build yourself up unrighteously. You are disgusting to God. He hates your guts. He hates your guts. And he doesn't care about all the poor Hispanic people. God gave you everything. As I go through Colombia and everything else, it's all right at your feet. You're disgusting pieces of shit. So I watched, just as Miss Park cried out, North Korea doesn't have anything. We don't have this. And just like I pulled out with Jordan, we don't have any national resources and everything else. Really? And as I go through and I show them their cup overflows, they just lacked intelligence, just like the Indian reservations and everything else. Everybody crying poor mouth. God's disgusted. He's sick and tired of you pieces of shit. You stupid fools. And you elect these pieces of garbage to guide you. And you turn away from God. And you turn to these pieces of freaking garbage to guide you. And you will burn for it. There is no replacing God. And as I've said from birth, and I've been saying, I am just a humble servant of the Lord. I am just a vessel. And I love him, and I serve him with my whole heart, all my being. And I will never, ever turn away from him. There's nothing in my life, no challenge, no tragedy, no nothing that I've ever even think about. I don't even think about it. From birth, I don't even hesitate. I don't even do what Jesus did when he questioned his relationship with God. I don't do that. He made mistakes in his faith. I don't make those mistakes. He is not equal to me in the love of the Father. My love of the Father is unprecedented. Jesus doesn't even have it. So there is an unbreakable bond. And God wanted that. And Jesus knows this. He's not against me. This is not blasphemy. It's the way it was designed to be. That's the prophecy of the second coming. It's an improvement, finishing on what was started. The conclusion. And yes, I used to call Jesus my brother. I did. And that's how I think of him. As my brother, not my God. As my sibling. As my counterpart in God. In union together. Inseparable, undeniable, unbreakable. But you learn from your siblings. And I learned from him his shortcomings, where he fell. And I had challenges he didn't have. And I made my errors. But together, we worked through it. Guided by the hand of the Father and the Holy Spirit. The mother, as it says. We have a father and we have a mother. Heterosexuality is the only way to go. And that's the purpose I put out there. And I show you biblically that the Holy Spirit is considered the essence of female. And we have a mother and a father. And that mother and father bared Jesus and brought me into the world. They're my heavenly mother and father. I have my earthly and I have my heavenly. So the point is, when you hurt me, you hurt them. You hurt my family. And I don't think my family is going to stand for it. But that's your choice. You sure I'm in the right car seat? Yeah. National Highway Transportation. Yeah. And then they pointed out with the coat that it creates more separation between that, and you have to take the coat off the child before you put the child in the car seat. Now the point is, how do you do it with less hassle? Truly, you have to work with the jacket designers and that. In the winter months and cold climate, it's easier for people in California and that, where they don't have heavy winter coats. It's not for thin coats that are really thin in that, like say a jean jacket, something that's really summer wear that's very thin. They're talking about thicker, heavy coats. The little baby things you put them in, the singlets, the winter singlets that are very thick. That's what they're talking about. And they should tell you with it the thickness. The thickness. Where is the crossover? And then on the coat, they put the safety parameters and say, take coat off before putting in child seat. And it has it right on the jacket, on the exterior. It says, safety guidelines, take coat off before putting child in car seat. So, I don't get it. It's just like this truck riding on my ass on the highway, breaking the CDLs. Everybody violating the law and saying F you to my life. That's what you say when you tailgate me. You say, I don't give a shit if you live or die. That my life is superior to your life. But I'll put out the trolling and other things. It's assault. It is many other crimes. And I'll go ahead and post it on the Tumblr. So you can see the serious legal ramifications of what these pieces of shit are doing. And it amounts to felonies. And so you can charge anyone tailgating me with a serious felony. And that means they're going to jail for a long time. Here, a future built on mentorship. I believe that. But getting back to the codes, they have to tell how thick it is. And when you take the child out of the child seat, but the child can't sit in the front seat. I had this issue with my brother-in-law where I was in the seat and back seat, and he had the child in the front seat, and he didn't have the seatbelt on, and he had to slam on the brakes, and he did the same thing I did. He has a very protective nature. Like when I got in an accident with Costa in the car, he had his seatbelt on. But I still threw my arm out to hold him back, to protect him. Just like when my wholesaler, Lisa, was walking down the sidewalk and we were going to the steakhouse, and the sidewalk was uneven and she was in high heels. She stepped in a crack and was going to do a serious face plant. So as I pull in when people come near me, to give them grace and benefit of the doubt that they're not trying to infringe on me and not trying to hurt me, I also react the opposite way. Lisa used to call me her hero, too. She was an orphan who was adopted, an Asian baby, and I had a big crush on her. Now, she married a black guy. But she was my John Hancock wholesaler, and she was an Asian. Tim was also, but Lisa was Tim's boss. And we were going to it, and she caught, and she went straight down, and I grabbed her arm and pulled her straight back up. She almost bit it hard. No hands in front of her. Her hands were behind her. She was going to take it full face, meaning nose and teeth. And, oh yeah, that saved the village of Rosemont from a possible serious lawsuit for not taking care of their sidewalk. But the whole thing is, I'm highly protective. And it doesn't take, it's built into me. So no matter what you do to me, I go back to righteousness and justice. All I do is righteousness and justice. There is no evil in me. But the whole point is, like when Costa, I just threw out my arm. He probably doesn't remember, but I held him. He had his seatbelt on, but I wanted to be extra careful because it's my fault. And it was black ice. And that corner is known for it. And I should have known better. But he was okay. Nothing happened to him. But I wanted to double protect. Unlike my brother-in-law didn't have the seatbelt on and his child went flying to the windshield. And by him having the right instinct, he put out his arm and caught the child in the air and put the child back into the seat. But I tried to tread lightly, not to piss him off. But first of all, why aren't I sitting in front? And second of all, why don't they have their seatbelt on? I drove kids all the time. They buckle up for me, and they don't argue. But, again, and it's his kid, not mine. But my girl, she hit the front windshield sitting in the middle seat and back. And when they got into an accident, lost control in the Beamer, she went propelled forward and snapped her neck on the front windshield. And she had snapped her neck and had massive brain trauma. And the 4 boys all survived. Women are more fragile. They die in accidents. My other friend, who I miss, is a female. She went down to Rocky Point, and she was in a bus. And the buses don't have, like, school buses and that, don't have seatbelts. What happened? Rollover accident. She had head trauma and snapped her neck, basically. She died. I mourned her. So my friends died, these females died in these rollover accidents. So you think I haven't been studying this? So I understand these mortalities, but people don't understand their exposures. And no one tells them what they're capable of and what they should and shouldn't do. And just like this car behind me should go to jail immediately for a felony. You can't do this. I'm getting on the ramp. Let's look at the speed sign on the ramp. They're tailgating me. Now let's get on the ramp. The ramp says 25 miles an hour. No, 35. I'm going to slow down to 35 miles an hour. That's the maximum on the ramp. 35. So I'm doing 30. And they're tailgating me. And I pump the brakes. I put on the flashers. They're still tailgating me. See the intensity of the lights? They're still tailgating me. They're violating. It says at 30 miles an hour, it's 7 car lengths. Do you know that? Look at it. I posted it on Tumblr. It is literally 7 car lengths. They're not 7 car lengths behind me, are they? So, all these people breaking the law, including law enforcement. 7 car lengths! But this piece of shit now is sitting in my blind spot. This piece of fucking living fucking garbage. Right there. Fucking piece of garbage. Getting away with it, right? The minivan in front, the gray Honda minivan. I posted the car lengths. That's at 30 miles an hour. I wanted to see for the city of Chicago. I maintain appropriate distance. Everybody on this highway should be getting pulled over and getting a ticket ASAP. Every single one of them until you break them and they keep the proper spacing. And I want them broken. I want them put into unbelievable impoverishment. I want their cars repossessed. I want their houses taken away. I want their credit destroyed. Keep on hitting them with tickets again and again and again and again. No forgiveness until they break and they maintain the proper spacing. And insurance companies are in violation of the property and Department of Insurance, and I want auto insurance companies, their executives, to be thrown in jail. Because if they're not advocates for proper spacing, then they're promoting accidents and they need to be removed from their position and replaced, and I want them to go to prison. They're playing a Ponzi scheme with your money, jacking your premiums so they can steal from you and justify it with the accidents because people don't maintain proper spacing. I want them, the federal prosecutors, to crack down and start locking them up. This shit has gone on long enough. You've tortured me long enough. Now I want them to be like the hand of God and slay them, smite them in the name of the Lord until they're broken. They need to be retrained. Our society is a piece of shit. And I told this to charities. You think my stance has changed. I told it to charities. These people are supposed to be remolded. You're not supposed to further their evil. As Thomas Aquinas and Martin Luther said, they must turn away from their sin. And if they don't, they must suffer for their sin. We put people in jail. We people throw the death penalty. Obama killed thousands with drone strikes and innocent people, justifying the necessity of it. So we do this standard to break them. We did the surge in Mosul, killing many Iraqis, to further pull out the troops and give it back to the terrorists and make it an ISIS stronghold. Oh yeah, Mosul, that's, the terrorist that cut off Nick Berg's head and that. And all those troops that we lost for the surge in Mosul to take it. Then Obama pulls out the troops and they turn into ISIS. That terrorist organization evolved and became even more ruthless and wicked. Came back with even more resolve. And that's what you don't understand. It's like an alcoholic and they relapse. The second time comes back even stronger than the first. And then if you solve the problem and they relapse again, the third time they come back even more wicked than the second time. It doesn't get better, it gets worse. And that's what we saw as we pulled out the wickedness amplified. It's a forever war. Once you go into Mosul, you never come out of Mosul. You never give them back the territory. We didn't learn from Vietnam, where we went in, fought, beat them, pulled our troops out. They took back the territory, and we were fighting this revolving thing. We go in, win, pull out, they take it, we go in, and we did these forever, and we were like, oh, it's the air cav, it's so great. It was ingenious, but the point is to drop them there and to stay there. Once you take ground, you never give the ground back. It's like going and giving it back, like, oh, the government, we take this and now we give it all back to the drug dealers. We solve the problem, and they do. Like in Florida, HIV, we do this great movement, we suppress it with Live Aid and everything else, and then we give it back. And we bring in these people, and then we allow these children to do sexual orgies and everything else as children. Full-on orgies in elementary school, spreading HIV and other STDs. These children in Florida getting AIDS, HIV, getting chlamydia and gonorrhea and everything else, doing all kinds of sexually inappropriate things. And where did they get it? As I found out, they were looking at internet porn. They had access to phones, and they could get internet porn on their phone and on their tablet and on their laptops. And they were watching the orgies. Like, I watched Japanese once, and they had like group orgies all the time in Japan. What the hell is up with that? That's disgusting. I wasn't for heatedness. I think it should be an adult retreat, but more like the Sybaris. So, no, I've never been for heathenness. I posted it, but you don't understand. I wanted it like the Sybaris, where it's heterosexuals doing it in the privacy of their confined room. So again, totally different. So that's one thing. I discussed it with the Japanese. But these kids in Florida were watching all this. I found out David, he told me, because Michael told me, you wouldn't believe, David said in elementary school, watching all this and all these kids doing orgies. Why? They were simulating what was done on adult entertainment sites. They were acting them out because they had all this access. What did the black guy tell me downtown at the Harold Washington Library? One of the problems they have at the Harold Washington Library is what? And I'll turn it back on me. Is what? People searching out pornography. It's the same with the University of Arizona in their libraries. People, all these domain sites trying to get around the filters that protect against them, and this is the licensing, and this needs to be done with the UN. They have to have well-established domains. And the funny thing, Facebook, you know, my friends in security, Leon, he went to Purdue, he played football there, but he got off of Facebook and only stayed on LinkedIn. And I said, Leon, why'd you get off? And he said, Facebook carries too many viruses. Facebook, lots of predators. It's a security risk. Does Facebook know that? That people are posting all this stuff and they're invading people's system through Facebook? And he told me this years ago because he's in the security industry. He got off of Facebook because it was a massive virus spreader. He said LinkedIn did better, owned by Microsoft, did 100% better job in securing and proofing the information on their LinkedIn site. It is incredibly secure compared to Facebook. So he got off and was only on LinkedIn. I haven't seen Leo in a long time, but have you ever seen him talk about that? No. But Facebook is a massive security risk. Does the Pentagon know that? Does law enforcement know that? That its global footprint also makes it a massive security link. And Facebook needs to take this serious and address the issue.